Blockchain Show is a podcast that demystifies cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology.
Here we go. This is the Blockchain Show. Neeraj, welcome.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks for having me here.
It's an honor to have you here. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself a little bit to the audience, kind of giving us a little bit of your background and how we got here.
My background has been completely in payments. I was the one who has worked with RBC and Apple to bring projects like Apple Pay to market. I've been in this blockchain space also for pretty long. I'm one of the first few coded on Bitcoin. I've been doing those things since 2011, actually, when you search blockchain on Google and nothing comes up. I was one of the first few coded on Bitcoin, followed by Ethereum, Fabric. I sit on lots of blockchain board of advisory, and this is what I've been doing for more than a decade now.
Awesome. Yeah, Apple Pay, that is a pretty big deal, I'll be honest. That definitely changed how people go about purchasing things and their concept of money. I was a little sad because I remember it was around that time that I was getting into Bitcoin and some other coins. You could just tell that Apple was not into that. And then I figured out why, because they were developing their own payment system, which makes sense. But yeah, I'm definitely a fan of Apple Pay. It brought up some interesting conversations with friends about what is cryptocurrency. And they'd say, well, I already know what digital money is because I have Apple Pay. And it just kind of got the conversation going. You know, I had to tell them like, well, actually, we've had digital money a lot longer than Apple Pay, but that's a whole different story. Yeah, well, thank you for that. If you wouldn't mind telling us kind of what your current projects are or what you're passionate about today.
Sure. And before I go there, just a small comment, what you said about Apple Pay and Bitcoin or Ethereum or Ether. They're not much different, actually. The concept is pretty similar because they both use the concept of token, and we can talk more maybe sometime or a bit later, the similarities between Apple Pay and Bitcoin and Ether. But today, what we are mostly dealing with is enterprise blockchain. These big enterprises, Walmart, BMWs, Boeing. There's a big problem in the supply chain space, as you would have seen, where there's a backlog. Companies, organizations do not know where their products are, where the raw materials are. So in short, supply chain is broken and blockchain is here for rescue, and that's where we are helping it.
That is really interesting. I definitely agree with you. Would you rather get into that first, or do you want to circle back to the Apple Pay thing? Because that also really kind of piqued my interest.
Sure, I can talk a little bit about the similarities here. Actually, when I was doing, because it's related, the way Apple Pay works, the technology behind it is the tokenization. And what this tokenization is to take the identity and create a digital asset out of it. So what Apple Pay does is takes the information of your credit card, and then it creates a type of virtual credit card on your phone. But it's not digital money. It's the tokenization of the credit card. It's not the tokenization of the currency, be it US dollar, Canadian dollar, or whatever the currency is. So Apple did it to a certain extent where it tokenized the credit card. But what Bitcoin did, it has tokenized the currency itself. So you see the difference, that what is getting tokenized. Before blockchain, it was not possible to tokenize currency. You always needed a third party to do it. For example, it can be central government, or in this case, it was Apple. What Bitcoin did, it was able to tokenize currency without the help of any third party or third party organization.
Yeah, man, that's really interesting. I might actually owe my friend an apology. He might have been closer to the truth than I was aware. Earlier, when you're talking about your current projects, some of the big institutions. I can't remember if you said it was broken or needing help. Could you maybe expand on that a little bit?
Sure. When we say supply chain is broken, what we mean is, think of this way: there are goods, products moving all the way from China to all the way to US. And while it's happening, there are so many organizations which are involved. For example, suppose it's a cotton shirt, right? They are growers, and then it goes to mills, then clothes get produced, then it goes to the factory where the shirts on, and then it gets onto the ship. It reaches to the coast, then on the truck. So I think people don't appreciate when they buy, for example, a shirt on a shop, that how many hands and how many organizations it has crossed. But now what happens when the goods move, the information or the data of that product also moves. So for example, it was in China, then it went to the ship, then it went to the truck, it came to the shop in a nutshell. So they are different organizations. And again, I repeat, when the goods move, the data or the information also move. The problem today is the goods are moving much faster than the data. I know it's surprising that we are living in a digital world, but that's the truth. Because companies, organizations are using database which are decades old, and they are not smart enough where they can get connected with each other and move data information at the same pace along with the goods. Therefore, the information gets broken. Therefore, the ships are standing on the coast for months before the information can be brought in, it gets filtered, and then finally the goods starts moving. So that's what we mean by broken supply chain.
That's something I used to think about quite a bit, maybe 2-3 years ago. Saw some promising projects that were working towards that, but it sounds like it still has a long way to go. Have you seen much advancement in that regard, or embracing of the technology to help, or do you still think there is a long way to go?
I think COVID has helped the cause. When this COVID happened, all the shortcomings of the system, of the software, it came out, and it came out way too loud, where end user and consumers started getting impacted. And that started ringing bell to all these organizations that it's high time. They just can't continue to spend money on the technology which has to do with front end. But now it's time that behind the scene also, they need to spend more and modernize those technology. So yes, I think the organizations has awakened their IT systems, their top technologists, their board has awakened that enough is enough, and they need to invest a bit more, basically a lot more, towards the advancement of technology which is behind the scene. And I can confirm, because the number of organizations who have started reaching out to us here at DLT Labs has grown exponentially since the start of COVID.
Yeah, certainly a turning point in history. I guess the silver lining is maybe furthering along, some streamlining of that process. I meant to ask you earlier about your work at DLT Labs. What led you to form DLT Labs, and if there's anything else that we haven't touched on with your work there?
When I started reading about blockchain and Bitcoin at the very start, since I was coming from payments, I got really excited. I was at RBC. I took some daring step. I decided that RBC will not be able to move fast enough. Therefore, I left. I started actually a bunch of startups in San Francisco area, a few of them in Toronto. Even I joined R3, who are located in New York. When I joined these organizations, I joined in hope that together we can do advancement of technology. But to my surprise, and this was the first time I was working for startups, they were spending their time and effort more in marketing than in real building the technology. And blockchain was way too new in 2012, 13, even 14, where there was not enough to talk, but there was a lot where the basic framework needs to be developed. So finally, I got tired. I left everything what I was doing. And that's what started DLT Labs, where we invested all our time, money, and effort to develop those base frameworks and standards which help which is helping all the developers today, even within the DLT Labs or outside it. Because without or in absence of those frameworks and standards, you just can't develop enterprise level or high level programs on top of blockchain. So that was the reason why DLT Lab was started, and that's what we do today.
Yeah, very good. It's impressive how early on you were involved blockchain, and when you were still in finance, it seemed like you saw the potential for blockchain to help revolutionize that industry. Moving on to more enterprise blockchain, how early did you realize other implications for blockchain besides just financial applications?
I'll say it was pretty early on. I think the world has forgotten, and maybe I'll say not forgotten, maybe the world never learned. And people think, as you're asking the question also, right? Like, that blockchain has to do with crypto or financial stuff only. But that's not true, actually. Blockchain is all about accounting, tracking, and tracing any tangible or intangible assets. Even if we go back to the very first white paper, or more than the white paper, if you see the very first set of code which was written for Bitcoin, it was for tracking, tracing, and accounting of any asset. That asset can be crypto, as we all know, can be gold, it can be land, it can be pretty much everything. But that's where the world got confused, or maybe the crypto thing got so hyped that people forgot that what was the real concept behind blockchain. So blockchain is not just about crypto. It's all about accounting, tracking, and tracing any asset.
I think that might be hard for some people to wrap their heads around when it comes to real world physical commodities or assets, because if it's purely digital, maybe in people's mind, it makes more sense, okay, there it is. But as soon as we start talking about gold or some of the other things that you mentioned, I don't know why. It just seems more difficult to, I don't know what it would be. I mean, because there's still an element of trust. I mean, even if you can account for it, it's like, well, where is it? And we've talked to other people about ways to account for things in the real world, whether you put, QR codes on them but I don't know, maybe you could help me too understand, some of these real world assets. You have the blockchain mechanism in place, but how do you satisfy people's need for trust as to these physical objects, if that makes any sense at all?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point, actually, because what we all don't realize in reality, blockchain is one of the most complex technology which has come into existence in, I'll say, in last couple of decades. If you compare it with any other technology like AI or few others, maybe like neural and all those types of technology may be complex, but blockchain is really complex. And the reason why I'm saying this thing, this is the first time when the programmers has to work in multi-dimension. Before blockchain, before distributed world, it was pretty relatively easier, where it was a simple server client architecture where there's a server, there's a client. I don't want to make it too technical, but like there's one, your laptop is there, it is dealing with one server which is sitting somewhere and everything is working. This is the first time where we have to work in multi-dimension where there are no servers. I know I'm not talking about serverless architecture, but there's no server, there's no client, data is replicated all over. In short, again, I don't want to make it very technical. In short, blockchain is a very complex, sophisticated technology, and it will take time for we all to understand. We are still in infancy. But when it comes to digitization of asset, blockchain in collaboration with other technology can do magic. For example, you said QR code. No, that's not the solution. I did a project where we wanted to track a bar of gold. Now, in simple way, you will just put a QR code and you want to track it. No, that's not the way how to digitize any good. What we did with the help of AI, we took pictures, and with the help of the picture, we took various coordinates, we took the weight, we took the time, we took probably more than 50 attributes of that particular piece of gold, and we took that information and we hash it. That is, we created a unique identity on the blockchain so that now when it starts moving, and if we take the picture again, we will be able to track it. Is it the same piece of gold or a different piece of gold? So that's the real digitization of asset what we are talking about.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, thank you for explaining that. Getting as much data as you can and then putting it on the blockchain. It's fascinating. And I'd imagine there's so many other areas of life that this could streamline and make much better if it would be embraced. I remember reading about Walmart Canada a while back, getting some recognition, and I was happy to see that you were involved with that. Would you mind sharing some about that project and why it was significant?
Yeah, no, for sure. That is one of the biggest blockchain implementation till the time, I'll say. The reason is, and what basically Walmart Canada did, I think we all will appreciate that on a day-to-day basis, Walmart deals with thousands of suppliers, vendors, thousands and thousands of products moving across hundreds of their stores and delivery centers. It's not easy to manage them all. In a nutshell, what Walmart or any of these giant stores does, they have their suppliers, they have their freight companies, and then they ask their suppliers to move goods to their delivery centers or to their stores in order to make sure that there are no empty shelves. I think we all have seen empty shelves a lot in the last couple of years. But it's very hard to manage them. And at the same time, Walmart needs to pay back also, right? Like to all their suppliers that whatever the goods gets moved. Before this blockchain solution, what we implemented for Walmart, there were more than 98% of discrepancies in the goods which used to be moved. Walmart used to take more than 6 months to pay their invoices. After the solution, and it's going on since I think it's now more than 1.5 years, where Walmart has moved goods worth billions of dollars, and now those discrepancy or disputes have reduced to less than 1%, and the invoices what Walmart has to pay is getting paid in matter of weeks, if not days. So that's the power of blockchain, where all these parties, all these organizations have come together on one platform so that they can do business seamlessly.
Yeah, that is excellent. I would imagine smart contracts play a pretty major role in a lot of this. Is that still the case?
It is. It's all smart contract. It's the programming, is the smart contract, the automation which is sitting inside the blockchain. That's the key recipe. We need to create more and more of these smart contracts. The more we create, the more automation we can do. And this automation is different from the regular automation what we hear of. This, we are talking about removing those third parties. The more the third parties we can remove, the better the world we can create.
Right. When I think of smart contracts, I think I'm a bit dated because I think Ethereum still. I know that's not always the case anymore. What's your thought on that with all the recent changes to Ethereum? I know there's so many chains, there's so many ways to go about it. In your opinion, what is the best mechanism to enable these smart contracts?
Well, as you said, there has been lots of changes, and I being part of the community, the developer group, I think they all make sense. Ethereum is on the right path. The changes and few of the more major releases which are about to come will make Ethereum much more mature. But at the same time, Ethereum at its core design is not designed for privacy, has never been designed for enterprises to get adopted as is. And that's where there are other blockchain, enterprise blockchain system like Hyperledger Fabric are there. So the changes which is happening in Ethereum is at the right path. And I see like Ethereum is there to exist for decades to come and is going to solve lots of problems with the help of sophisticated smart contract which we can deploy in Ethereum. But at the same time, it needs to work very closely hand in hand with Hyperledger Fabric, where the smart contract which can be deployed on Fabric are much more designed for privacy to make sure that the requirement of enterprises gets fulfilled. And together, Fabric and Ethereum can do magic where they can, again, I know I've used the word of third party a couple of times, I'll use it again, because that's what is essential to get rid of third party as much as possible. That will reduce the cost of goods, that will improve the type of services what we get on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know that for most big companies, growth is kind of a huge central moving force. They've got shareholders each quarter, they want to grow. And so I would imagine that, utilizing blockchain and a lot of their processes could cut costs considerably, increase efficiency and all help towards, growing. And you mentioned taking out middlemen, something that I think is always better for smaller businesses in particular, because they just don't have the capital when they're starting out. Right? It's kind of an obvious question, but would you say that smaller businesses would benefit just the same or maybe even more than some of the big businesses with using some of these blockchain mechanisms that you were talking about?
Well, my view, and we have proven it also, small businesses are going to get more benefit actually than the big enterprise. And the reason is, see, big enterprises have big money which they can invest for the IT infrastructure, for the security of their software system. We keep on seeing so many hacks and attacks all over, where these big enterprises definitely have blockchain as one of the best tool to provide security to the data what they store. But still, if they don't use blockchain, still they have lots of muscle power, they have lots of money to buy some complex solution, sophisticated solution, which small companies cannot. But what blockchain allows, along with reducing third party, where they don't need to have third party audit system, at the same time, these small companies can benefit from the core properties of blockchain. For example, security. Once you adopt blockchain, you do not need to have very sophisticated technology. You don't have to invest millions in order to safeguard your customer or client data. IT infrastructure. It's proven with the help of blockchain, you can reduce your IT infrastructure by more than 60%. So it's a lot basically which these small companies or startups, if they adopt blockchain, they can benefit out of it. And at the last, if these startups or organizations want to work with big giants, and if they are already on a blockchain network, it will be very easy for them to connect to these big organizations like Walmart. For example, today, all the freight company, the truck company which supplies goods for Walmart, they are on blockchain. Now it's mandatory for them to be on blockchain if they want to work with Walmart. In coming years, all these big organizations will be on Walmart, and they will ask their suppliers, their truck companies, their partners to be there. So it's better for these startups to start getting onboarded onto these networks sooner. That will help them save money, as well as it will get them more business in coming years.
Right. In my opinion, it has a good track record so far overall. I would imagine people just getting into thinking about using this technology in their business, maybe if they haven't followed it closely over the years and they're only seeing what's been in the headlines recently, it might be a little tough. I mean, I don't really want to talk about too much about all the recent corruption and kind of breakdown of the cryptocurrency market, but unfortunately, that does seem to overshadow the potential good that blockchain can bring to the world. Do you have anything to say about that, kind of the state of not only the cryptocurrency market, but the implications it has on the adoption of blockchain?
See, when in the initial days of 2012, 13, when I used to talk about blockchain, no one wants to hear me what I'm saying, because blockchain, they said no one cared about it. And then suddenly ICOs and cryptos started coming out, and suddenly everyone was interested. And I said that this is amazing, because every time I was presenting blockchain, I used to spend 10-15 minutes just to explain what blockchain is. And now it's great. I can save those 10-15 minutes, because now I don't have to explain blockchain. People already know blockchain, and thanks to crypto, that now everyone is interested. It was great. And suddenly, like, every entire world got interested. Amazing. But with every good comes bad also, where I see there are way too many bad actors who have entered, because now there's way too much of value people see in crypto. So there's not much new I can say than what we all hear all around. But what people need to learn, and I think now the dust is settling down, where people see that it's not, the crypto is not just the only thing, but people need to understand crypto is one of the smallest use case on blockchain which changed the world. They need to think beyond it and think of, if just crypto can do so much, how blockchain can really change this world. We need to invest there. All these people who invested in crypto, they need to understand crypto is done. Like, whatever new thing has to happen, that's there. They need, if they want to get into the blockchain to make more money, they need to invest in more use cases, because it will have the same impact on their investment as crypto did in the early days.
Yeah, I totally agree. What would you think currently is one of the biggest barriers to widespread adoption of blockchain that you see?
There are two things which I feel is, or maybe it can be more than two also, but two major things which I feel is hindering the growth of blockchain. One is definitely lack of knowledge. As I said, blockchain is one of the most complex and sophisticated technology which has come into existence in the last couple of decades. It's not easy to understand. When I see people learning, they don't have patience. They just learn how to write crypto code, right? What I mean is, right, how to launch an ICO or how to create a new coin, and they think they know blockchain. No, that's not even 1% of blockchain. So that lack of knowledge is definitely one of the most prominent hindrance there. And I appreciate this show, right, what you are doing, and that's what I'm trying to do, where we need to tell the world, teach to the world that, hey, this is what blockchain, they need to understand the underlying concept within the blockchain. For example, that's not about crypto, it's about asset tracking. That's what people need to understand. And if we can create more people who understand that underlying concept, I think blockchain will just fly. That's one. Second problem, what I see is lack of frameworks and standards. See, for example, let me take example of website development. Maybe 2 decades ago, it used to be pretty complex thing where you have to write HTML code. Like it wasn't easy. But today, you can go on a website like maybe wix.com or something similar where you will do just drag and drop and you can build beautiful website. Why you are able to do it? Because there are standards. There are platforms which makes it easy for developers to adopt it. In today's world, blockchain do not have it. And that's where we at DLT Labs, where a whole lot of resources we are dedicating to build those frameworks. Platform we have called DL Unify, where you can go and you can build blockchain solutions from scratch without much effort. And it's not just us. Now I see there are bunch of organizations who are investing in building those framework. Hyperledger is doing an amazing job where they are not investing, I'll say they are not just investing in end solution, but they're helping us to build those standards and frameworks. And once we can have it, developers, or I'll say developers with little bit of knowledge only of programming, they will be able to build more solutions. So I believe lack of knowledge of what exactly blockchain is and the lack of frameworks and standards is hindering the growth of blockchain as of today.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I thought that years ago, if people were educated about it, they'd embrace it, they would use it, and then that would inspire growth for products. But now I'm kind of wondering, like, does the infrastructure have to be there? Does it have to be easy to use? Does it have to be on the devices that people buy and just working in the background for it to take? And I don't know which one needed to come first. You know, you were talking about middlemen earlier, and it's almost like some of the big tech companies in a way are kind of becoming middlemen or gatekeepers. I mean, we were talking about Apple Pay earlier. I know there's other options available. Like, you know, I've used Amazon. You know, they have grocery stores now, and you can pay with your app. It's easy. Apple Pay obviously is amazing. It works very well. I'm sure Google Pay is just as good. You know, there's a lot going on in the background that, I'm sure they're charging fees. And if smaller companies want to use that service, then, I mean, there's always fees no matter what, even if they're doing credit card payments. And I was kind of hoping years ago that, crypto or some sort of blockchain technology could kind of help companies get around all those fees. And not only the fees, but just having big tech in control of things. I mean, not to say that it's bad. I mean, big tech makes products that makes our lives a lot easier. Like anything, the bigger a company or government or anything gets, there can be problems. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you see, blockchain and crypto as a way to kind of get around some of the big tech controls, or does there have to be some sort of symbiosis between the two for now until we get more widespread adoption?
I think what you said later, yes, it has to be a combination of what these big enterprises are doing, because I think the right word here is these companies like whether Google Pay, Android, Apple Pay, even Visa, MasterCard, the right word is with the innovation of blockchain, they have become redundant. The world needed them a decade ago, but now no more. And the reason is very, in a nutshell, I'll try to explain what exactly happened. Payment was there for always, right? Like payment have existed for always. And then in 90s, internet came, and they would, as soon as people, organizations saw internet, then there was a rush that, hey, you know what, we have to bring payments on top of internet. And what happened was, in that rush in 90s to bring payment on the internet, lots of these third parties came into existence. Visa, MasterCard, here in Canada, in Prague, or all these third parties, because banks didn't want it to invest. There were startups, organizations who saw opportunity that, okay, we will do something, and we will make the payments enabled on internet. And there was a rush, and that rush created all these organizations. But these financial institutions never thought what they are doing, right? Because of that rush, they created these big giants all around us who are charging anywhere from 1 to 3% or even more as a transaction fee. If we would have not rushed, and if we would have done the things right at that time, then these redundant companies or these third-party organizations was not needed. If we read the white paper and the code of Bitcoin, that's why blockchain came into existence. That's why he said that no more. Why we rush? There is a better way of doing things. And even if you go deep into the blockchain technology, you will see none of the components of blockchain is new. It's all the existing components of technology. It's just that the way we restructured them is brand new. It's a brand new way of storing data. It's a brand new way of seeing data. It's a brand new way in which two humans can interact. So yes, now these big organizations are seeing that the service what they were giving, because of which they were getting money, they are redundant. If they don't adopt this thing, one way or the other, they will have to go away. So what at least I'm seeing on my day-to-day life, any of these organizations, that's where they're investing so much, where they want to adopt these technology so that in coming years, they don't become irrelevant. But how exactly this combination will work, that time will only tell. But one thing is for sure, in every board meeting of these organizations, blockchain does come up. It's not something insignificant where they can say, oh, no, I don't care. They will have to care about it. They will have to do something. If not, then organizations will become irrelevant in coming years.
That's very well said. I don't want to sound like I'm against any of these companies, but it's just like you said, that there's a better way to do it. Sometimes I get frustrated that it's taking so long, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still a pretty young technology. Definitely excited to see where we're going in the near future. And speaking with you today has given me a lot of hope, because it's easy to get a little down reading the headlines. Yeah, I just wanted to get your predictions or thoughts on the future of blockchain. What your focus will be in the coming year, or just maybe any closing thoughts you'd like to give.
Yeah, so I'll say keep your hopes high, because see, when I said it's complex and sophisticated, there's a third time I'm using that word. Another word which goes along with it sounds boring to people. It's not sexy. Crypto is sexy. People don't think blockchain is sexy, and that's where not many organizations or people wants to follow, or even they write about it. But it doesn't have to be sexy. It's a technology which is going to run the world behind the scene. There's just no other option. And coming from the enterprises and seeing what is happening, I see that next couple of years, all these organizations, like these giants, they all are going to create their own blockchain network. And in reality, we are in the early 90s of internet. So where internet was in the early 90s, that's fair. So we are way too at the start, where all these giants, all these big organizations, and they have to, we just can't ignore them, because they have to fund they have to fund this innovation the way they funded internet in the early 90s. They are funding this blockchain network where all these bigs, they will have their own network. And like what Walmart did, they created a network, and now they are asking the suppliers, freight companies, everyone to come on board it. So I see next a year or two, we will see bunch of these networks there, where still like hundreds of organizations or thousands of organizations are doing business seamlessly, but they will not be connected. So next year, 2 year, 3 year, or maybe like, let's say like 3 to 5 years, let's say at max, these bunch of, I'll say like what in internet we used to call LAN, like local area network, these bunch of network will come, and then slowly they will start getting interconnected, therefore forming that internet. It will take some time. It needs some patience. But one thing I can guarantee, it is happening. The world is changing. The blockchain is taking it over. It will take some time. We need to have patience. And what I feel like, Ethan, like people like me and you together, the future of blockchain is in our hand. And we have to work very hard in order to make sure that that future is successful.
Yeah, totally agree. This has been a really good conversation. Man, I feel like we barely scratched the surface, but I just want to say thank you for coming on. Yeah, I wish you all the best, and hopefully we can reconnect again in the future.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. Hopefully our voices together can reach to a lot of more people around, where they can understand that, again, it's not just about crypto, it's all about asset. It's a lot. The world is changing, and hopefully we can motivate more people to learn blockchain in real deep, what blockchain really means. So no, thank you so much for having me here, and happy to talk or discuss or answer any questions if any comes from your audience.
Very good. Well, Neeraj, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks again.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.